Are you easily annoyed by your partner? Do you feel the need to escape when they get too close? Is it too uncomfortable to say I love you? Is it a burden to hold their hand? If you answered yes to all, or most of these questions, you most likely have an avoidant attachment style. Let's describe the 3 different attachment styles. Avoidant types, although not always aware of it, fear intimacy. They feel trapped in relationships and unconsciously avoid them. A deactivating strategy is a behavior or a thought that is used to diminish the attraction for another person. It's a way for these people to suppress their desire to seek closeness. Longing for the Phantom X, looking for the one. Nothing screams I have an avoidant attachment style louder than this. One would assume that avoidants are consciously avoiding relationships, that they're people who always want to be alone, but this is far from the truth.
You know what? I see that a lot in these spaces, a lot from the guys. You know, and that's why I put out the Sigma videos, because I can absolutely relate. I'm pretty much self-sufficient outside of my, my marriage. But before this, yeah, it would take an act of God for me to ask for help. Even if I knew somebody had a certain skill set, I wouldn't even ask until they would try and, insert themselves in the issue that I'm having. Be like, hey, man, I could do this or whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then I'll make sure they have every opportunity to help me. But it was just very tough for me to ask for help. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but it used to be like that until I got my tribe. So now, you got dudes that you lean on. Like I told you guys, I was having issues with my computer. My homeboy set up my chat GPT. He got all kinds of certificates in IT. It's like, man, I'm finna put this dude to work. And he hooked me up. So that's the importance of having a nice little circle of respected men. I had to build myself up into becoming somewhat of a secure attachment style, because I was not fit to get married if I didn't know how to appreciate a person who was healed. And I didn't at the time. I felt, and when you go to therapy, they give you homework. So I used to have this workbook where I used to have to fill out certain traits that I thought turned me off. And it was so funny. When I gave it back to my therapist, she was laughing at the most of them. She's supposed to be laughing at this stuff, but I just remember that part where she gave me the little workbook and she was reading them off. She's like, that's not attractive to you? That would turn you off? And it was just so funny. But I was like, yeah, I can't present this side of me to my future wife, because she would deserve better than that. I knew that because you deal with good women, and I understood that I was a problem if I was in avoidant attachment style. It just wasn't conducive to my future marriage. So the place that I am now is definitely not the place that I was when I was on the dating market, if that makes sense.
In fact, fall in love very easily, but only with people that give them enough space to fantasize. The reality is that they fear intimacy, but instead of admitting this to themselves, they fall in love with people that are emotionally or physically unavailable, people they can't be with. An avoidant wants a soulmate, the one perfect person they have to find and be with for the rest of their lives. They strongly believe that once they do, there will be no work required to maintain the relationship. In their minds, everything will flow naturally and the honeymoon phase will never fade away. It sounds romantic, but no person and no relationship is perfect. These high expectations make every new potential partner another major disappointment. And for this...
Ladies, I'm specifically talking to black women. Did y'all hear that? No relationship is perfect. No man, no woman is perfect, man. So the longer y'all keep putting all these damn preferences and standards, you're going to be ass out. All right? Read this book. Here we go.
For this reason, they lose interest in them and keep searching for the perfect person they will never find. The avoidance mission is to find the one, and throughout their lives, they will meet different people that at first seem to have this potential. The problem is that the more time they spend with them, the more real, less attractive, less smart, and more annoying they seem. They will inevitably feel disappointed, they will lose interest, they will start feeling trapped, and resentment will kick in. Their need for space will cause them to break up or provoke the other person to do so. But once the ex-lover is no longer around, they will forget why they lost interest in them, and they will deceive themselves by thinking they lost the love of their lives, their soulmate. Any normal person would heal and move on after some time, but the avoidant won't, because unconsciously, he doesn't want to. This is because the strong feelings they have for their ex get in the way of any potential new relationship, and they are scared of relationships. Committing to a person is frightening to them, and by focusing on their unrequited situation, they allow themselves to ignore all the other possibilities and evade relationships entirely. In short, committing to a person that is rejecting you is in reality a way of not committing, meaning that the Phantom X is just an excuse to remain single.
This is somewhat explaining we call it in these spaces the one-itis. A lot of guys I notice get trapped in that. You're like, man, I just want her to do right. This one woman, I want her to do right, when you have to understand the difference between scarcity and abundance mindset. But it's tough for somebody that has this issue, avoidant. Yeah, it's very tough for you to do that, to understand that there's more fish in the sea. Even, you got multiple men on these platforms saying the same thing. It's not as easy as, we're saying it, especially when you are attached to that woman. So you've already, sometimes guys will create the fantasy or the future life with this woman, and she ain't even on that. And it's tough to get over, man. That's how you get heartbroken. I definitely understand, man. Let's get to it. Fair use.
A mere justification to avoid having to face love as a reality. This is called the Phantom X phenomenon, and it's just one of many deactivating strategies. Some other deactivating strategies are leaving when the relationship is going well, being unable to say I love you, even when it's expected, it's too uncomfortable, thinking you're not ready to commit, magnifying their imperfections while disregarding their qualities, being unfaithful, falling in love with a person that is unavailable, keeping secrets from your partner to maintain your independence, avoiding sexual contact or any kind of physical closeness. If you're on the other side of the relationship, you can tell your partner has an avoidant attachment style if he or she sends mixed messages about his or her feelings towards you, longs for an ideal relationship, but suggests it will be with someone else, desperately wants to meet the one, but never does, disregards your emotional well-being, says you're too needy, sensitive, or overreacting, ignores you if your words inconvenience him or her. The book provides us with 2 tips that will improve our relationships if we are anxious or avoidant. The first is to date someone secure. Anxious types shouldn't be dating avoidant types because they need closeness and intimacy, while avoidants want distance. Anxious types are extremely sensitive to signs of rejection, and avoidants send mixed signals and come across as rejecting. Anxious types want to know where the relationship is heading. Avoidants like to keep things foggy.
Watch.
Secure types are the ideal partners, but the problem is that a strong attraction exists between anxious types and avoidants. Avoidants think of themselves as independent, while the anxious think of themselves as dependent. Each reinforces the other's beliefs, and for this reason, they unconsciously look for each other. Anxious types are usually needy and insecure. This only raises the avoidant's self-esteem by making them feel even more independent and powerful. Avoidants feel self-reliant and powerful only to the extent that their partner feels needy and incapable. Avoidant types can't feel strong and independent if their partners feel the exact same way. Consequently, they never date other avoidants. Avoidants do not date each other. The avoidants' need for space pushes them to end relationships more quickly, leaving them single and searching for a different partner for longer periods of time.
6. Keeping love at arm's length. The avoidant attachment style. The lonesome traveler. Most of us are fascinated with people who go out into the world on their own, without any hindrances or obligations, without feeling the need to address or consider others' needs. From fanciful characters like Forrest Gump to real-life pioneers like Dian Fossey, such lonesome travelers often have strong principles and ideological motivations. Metaphorically speaking, we view people with an avoidant attachment style as lonesome travelers on the journey of life and relationships.
Where my avoidance at? Does that sound true?
Like Chris, they idealize a life of self-sufficiency and look down upon dependency. If you have an avoidant...
Who that sound like? Sound like me. That's how I told you guys all the stories, man. So now this, the Sigma stuff is starting to add up, man.
Attachment style, the lesson Chris ultimately learned, that experiences are only meaningful when shared with others, is key to your happiness as well. In this chapter, we look at the ways in which you, the lonesome traveler, manage to keep your distance even when you're with someone you love. We help you gain insight into why you behave as you do in relationships and how that behavior is stopping you from finding true happiness in your romantic connections. If you belong to the remaining 3/4 of the population, chances are that you know, or may someday get involved with, someone avoidant. This chapter will help you understand why they act as they do. A survival advantage can't buy you love. It's believed that each attachment style evolved in order to increase the survival chances of humans in a particular environment. The secure attachment style has worked best because throughout history, our ancestors lived predominantly in close-knit groups where...
This is good. I'm glad I kept this over. You said, what does the narrator mean by happiness? Project Leroy. He's talking about it in the sense of a relationship. Because I know you're probably asking that question like, well, what if I'm happy without being in a relationship? Cool. You can, if people are happy without being in a relationship. And that was a conversation that I had recently with one of my friends, because I was watching a show and trying to, shit on black men, and I get it. And they were saying it's not enough, it's not a lot of black men who are leaders. Y'all have heard this argument before, but they didn't define what a leader was. Okay. So I was asking the question. I said to my friend, I was like, man, does a black man have to be married in order to be considered a good leader? That's a question that you guys can ask in the chat. Do you have to be married to be considered a good leader? What y'all think? Because that was how the conversation was going. Because they said if 40, well, I know they didn't know the statistics, but I know 49% of black men are single, never married, right? So if we're saying that you can only be a good leader if you're married, 49% of black men aren't married. So you're saying that 49% of black men aren't good leaders. What do y'all think? Was that shaming language? Was that sign language, as Kevin Samuels used to say? Of course, I mean, I wasn't married all the time while I was in the military. I've led, directed, overseen many different groups in the military. So I knew I was an effective leader. It showed up in my work and the people that I supervise or I directed. But one of the ways that the black community takes digs at black men is to say that a lot of black men aren't good leaders. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I asked the question. No, you don't have to be married to be considered a good leader. But when you get married, for your relationship to work, yes, you need to be a good leader if you believe in that stuff. Because I know these days, a lot of young men and women, they keep throwing around this word partner. I did a little short video on that. That used to be relegated to the LGBT community, but now I see men and women saying partner. I'm looking for my partner or my person and all this type of stuff. When you get married, you need to be a good leader. So
working together was by far the best way to secure their future and that of their offspring. To ensure the survival of the species under any condition that might arise, however, more than one strategy was called necessary. For those born into hostile conditions in which large numbers perished from hunger, disease, or natural disasters, skills other than collaborative ones became more important. Those individuals who were able to detach and be self-sufficient were more successful at competing for limited resources in these extreme environments, and so a segment of the population leaned toward an avoidant attachment style.
To stay alive.
Unfortunately, the survival advantage for the human race does not necessarily translate into an advantage for the avoidant individual. In fact, studies show that if you have an avoidant attachment style, you tend to be less happy and satisfied in your relationships.
So do you guys agree with that or not? And the reason why they're saying, if you're avoidant, typically back in the day, and the book goes into a little bit more detail about this, when you had people that you could rely on back in the Stone Age days or whatever days, where you used to have to scrounge for food and shit, if you had a group of people, then you would live a little bit longer, or you would be able to sustain yourselves a little bit longer if you had people around you. And if you were avoidant, you were more vulnerable, okay? Because you didn't have people that you can rely on. Make sense?
The good news is that it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to be a slave to evolutionary forces. You can learn what does not come naturally to you and improve your chances at developing a rewarding relationship.
And that's why this book, they talk about this. They give you the tools to help you dig yourself out of it. If you want to dig yourself out of avoidant and anxious attachment styles. Some people they feel more comfortable. If you ain't bothered nobody, hey, get to it.
Flying solo? It's important to remember that the avoidant attachment style always manifests itself. It determines to a great extent what you expect in relationships, how you interpret romantic situations, and how you behave with your date or partner. Whether you are single or involved in a relationship, even a committed one, you are always maneuvering to keep people at a distance.
So you got on the outside, low avoidance, high anxiety, high avoidance, low anxiety. And then you could just, you see what's going here. Anxious avoidant has their own characteristics, which is the least desirable because it's high anxiety and high avoidance. That could lead to definitely some health issues. And then avoidant is low anxiety because you like, yeah, I already know what it is. I'm gonna just, move accordingly. And then, but it's high avoidance. Okay. And you can get comfortable as an avoidant. I noticed that just in these spaces.